All right, hello, we are recording. I'm just gonna have you start by introducing yourself.
Hi, my name is Ralonda Simmons. I'm multi-passionate. I do a lot of things. I've been a spoken word poet in Denver for about 10 years, off and on. It's like a relationship, I don't know. I am in school for my second master's. I'm an instructional designer with an entrepreneurial mind, and I met Tamika on Twitter like 10 years ago or 11 years ago. It's crazy.
It's true. It's like that. I've made a lot of people that way. There are a lot of people who like really dog on social media, but for me, it's been a huge boon. And like, I've made a lot of really amazing friends. Cause like, I remember when when Facebook first started, some of my friends were like, "You really need to get on this thing." I was like, "No, I don't think so."
Same.
I'm on there all the time now, but like,
It doesn't stop.
it doesn't stop. It does not stop. But that's the cool thing is like, I was like, oh, I can, get in contact with old friends and family and share with them. And
You look up
also
your
what
bullies.
happens. And what?
You look up your bullies.
No, I don't do that. I don't know.
Not once.
I did. And they're not doing very well. And that didn't give me a lot of pleasure. It made me a little
Okay.
sad. But yeah,
That's
it
fair.
was interesting to see that. I was like, oh, it didn't work out for them. But like, I feel like social media, like, there's like this backdoor way we can like create relationships with people we'd otherwise just be fans of, like, oh my gosh, I'm such a fangirl, and like can't talk to you ever. But like you send a message to someone, you might be surprised. Like one time I sent a message to Saul Williams, and I was just like, because my boyfriend at the time, his brother was hanging out in Seattle and happened to run into him and was hanging out with him. And at the time, I was like total fangirl. I'm still a fangirl, but not obsessively like I was. And I sent him a note, and I'm like, like less than 6 degrees of connection. My boyfriend's brother was out in Seattle hanging out with you, and I just wanted to tell you that I love your work. And he actually sent me a very nice message back. I was so surprised.
Yeah. He seems like a cool guy for sure.
He really does.
I saw him in concert a few years ago at the Summit Music Hall. And it was
Oh,
an
wow.
interesting experience. Can I tell you how much I miss concerts?
Right?
Like, concerts are so magical. Like, I love when I'm at a concert and everybody literally is paid to be there, right? So they want to be there, the energy is there, and at a certain point you all become this one entity, and it's just everything.
Yeah.
Damn you, Corona.
I know it. Like one of the last concerts I went to, I was hanging out with someone, and it was so cool because we would like, yes, at like all the same things, but it was just like, it was an energy. It wasn't
Or
even.
you just be looking around the crowd and everybody's saying the same words at the same time with their whole hearts. The last concert I went to, and I actually noticed this, it was Rhapsody at Summit Music Hall, because we love Summit Music Hall. It was her, Sa Rock. Have you heard of Sa Rock?
Yes.
That song where she's like, you better shine on them, baby, you a star. You
Yes.
better be exactly who you are forever.
Yep.
Everything.
Yeah. That song, I have that on the list. Huh?
Keeps people alive.
Yeah. That song, yeah, that's the stuff we need to be saying to ourselves, like that stuff. And I love where that stuff comes from too. I feel like a lot of it comes from like folks doing their own surviving. It's like, these are the words I need to hear. I need to say these things. And so then it becomes a song, and then even more powerful, I think that is amazing. That needs to happen more.
What? Yeah, no, yeah. I miss concerts.
I do too. Like, what is it about, like, our culture? I've thought about this since I was very young. Like, when I started listening to, they threw everything into that moniker world music in the 90s. And so it was everyone other than, United States was dubbed under world music. And I found, like, obviously native musics, and then a lot of music from Africa. So my favorite being the drummers of Burundi, and and then also the music from the rainforest, so the pygmies. And their preferred names usually seem to say people, like they are people. So like the Babanzeli and the Bayaka and stuff. And everyone in the community is singing, everybody, and there's no cost or anything, and everyone's singing and everyone's playing and everyone's dancing, everyone's participating. And then here in our culture, it takes a concert to get us all to participate. We don't have, church. There's church.
There's church.
But a lot of times we don't have that, and I feel like it's something that's direly needed and missing. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I live out in the suburbs, and I really don't know how that would work out here, but I love it. Like, we kind of had that for a few months with the howling. Yeah. There was something about the collective howling that I feel like tapped into that. Yeah. I don't know when it stopped, but it has stopped. In Italy, do you remember when this first popped off? Like, in Italy, everyone was standing on their balconies singing together.
Right.
There's just something about singing together that's just, maybe it's like we're recognizing our collectiveness, which we in the Western world are so alienated from. Yeah. But we're feeling that in that moment. And I feel like singing in choir. Did you sing in choir?
Oh yeah.
Like, when you really just hit that note. Yes. All together.
And it's like this electric thing that happens. It's, yeah.
So yeah, and it does something to the heart. I don't know where to go with that, but it was a nice thought.
Yeah, it is missing. And like, I see more of it happening in protest and stuff. And sometimes, unfortunately, people are chanting things over and over again that I'm a little worried about. But like, it is happening, And I think so. Like, the thing I'm thinking of is specifically, I can't breathe. And as someone who works in healing arts and stuff, I do see it as kind of a very human need to feel the tragedy, and I feel that a lot of times there isn't, when we go into a healing circle, and like just about every community, you go into a healing circle and you create a safe space. You create a safe space for that experience to happen, and for whatever to happen, and whether it be church or, our native folks, or like Santeria. You create this like safe space for these things to happen, and there are people appointed to stay clear, so that if things get too wild, you can ground it. Right. As a massage therapist, this happens too. Like, there are a lot of times in my work where I bring folks really close to an edge, but I am only qualified to do so much. So I can only take them just right before that edge, and then I have to ground them. Right. And so, like, protest is very important, and feeling those things is very important. And I think what I'm seeing, I'm just worried. It just sounds a little bit like a curse, like a promulgation of it. I don't know if that's true.
Because the word is energy.
The word is energy.
The word makes the invisible visible.
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
That's what we need too, though. We need to see it. So
if we said, I will breathe, because
I
that's
will
more
breathe.
accurate. That's more accurate. Our people been breathing under suffocating conditions for centuries, and it's not been, I'm gonna yell in the street, I can't breathe. It's, I will breathe, and
Right.
you gonna be mad about it.
Yes.
But
Ralonda, that's a new t-shirt. I don't even
wait,
know.
what was it? Write it down.
I will breathe, motherfucker.
Yes. Have I ever told you about the concept of holy spite?
No, tell me about this. Because I struggle with my anger. I struggle with that energy. Like, I know it's important, but I struggle with it. So tell me, please tell me.
I'll be glad to. So, I've had depression my entire life.
Okay.
I also have a heart that aches for the world. It really does. I pay too much attention. I'm very sensitive. But it's like at a certain point, you look around and you see the people like you for centuries have had to fight to be amazing, right? Have come up with wonderful arts. They thrived in spite of oppression. So at this point, it's like, you're going to put all this effort into trying to destroy me, right? And you're going to try to make me think less of myself. But what if I didn't do that?
Right.
What if I was like, you know what? I have everything within me to succeed. And if I don't, then I'll be damned if you know about it. I'm gonna survive out of spite.
Yeah.
I'm going to thrive out of spite. Part of it comes from being I always hesitate with how to tell my story in my healing.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. God's working on me. I was bullied a lot. And people would just be like, you could just tell when people get their jollies for making someone feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And because I am the person that young person needed back then, that's part of my healing practice. I have to say to myself, well, imagine how much energy they would not get if I didn't give them any. Like, they would just be, you put all that effort into that.
Yeah.
And yet here I am. Holy spite.
I can dig it. I can dig it. Like, and it's like, it's an energy. I always, like, in my later age, I'm older than most people think. I'm 44. And like,
Wear it
I've
well.
been saying, thanks. I sometimes I think about saying, I'm 54. Are you jealous? Because
And yes, they would be. Yes.
And what was I thinking? What was I saying? I totally lost my train of thought.
You're 44.
I'm 44, and I don't know, but somehow that wasn't quite what it was. But maybe it'll
Something
come
about
back.
holy spite.
Holy spite. Oh, yeah, how punk rock would have saved me if I just would have went full on. Like, if I would have learned about punk rock when I was like 16, 17, you know, it wouldn't have taken me this long to, like, you know, get to where I'm at, which is still pushing against, like, you know, all these struggles to kind of be palatable, you know.
Palatable.
Palatable.
Talk to me about that.
Oh God, like, so
Girl, palatable.
I know I didn't have the right people around me, Ralonda.
I'm sorry. I can relate.
And it was like I got the message that in order to succeed, I had to work really, really hard, you know, on the gerbil wheel, wherever that was placed. And I also had to be very nice. So like holding, you know, and I had to fit, and I had to, you know, all these stories that are just not true. And so like it was a constant, like, I keep trying to write about this one situation, I love catalogs and repetition. So like I am that same girl. I'm just kind of describing where I was and why it's taken me so long. And there was this incident in gym class in junior high. And at the
Girl,
time,
gym class, junior high, so
I know,
many bad things.
I know, I'm sorry.
Tell me about it. Oh my God.
You know, we would run laps around
Lord.
the field. And
Yeah.
at the time, I was a good runner. I was fast. I had long legs. I was thin at the time. And so it was my turn. And my natural stride was like, you know, I could book it just in a jog. And everyone else was complaining. They're like, oh, you're going too fast, blah, blah, blah. And so I slowed down. I slowed down for them. And this is actually a thing I've done all of my life. And it's just like, it's because I don't, that's another message I got. It's like, oh, you're too good for us, all those kinds of things. So like, I would try to be nondescript and I would be, you know, not too bright or whatever. Like just, I just wanted people around me. I wanted my people with me, but they never stayed, you know? So it's a silly story we're told all the time, right? But so I'm hoping now that I'm where I'm at, I can at least write about it. And I'm finding that these things can be helpful to other people. So I don't have to like mull in the disappointment and resentment, which I don't necessarily have anymore, because we all make our choices, you know. But and now I can make other choices, and that is a wonderful privilege, you know. It's a wonderful privilege.
No, and part of what touches me about this is how universal that story is. Did you see my reaction?
I know, you were like,
oh no. No. You got middle school and gym class together? No.
Yeah. Yeah, but like if I would have learned like learned about punk rock in like 7th or 8th grade, maybe I would have been a different person, you know?
Yeah. What were you listening to back then? Do you remember?
So I was listening to my parents' music for a long time until I started working around 15, 16. Like I used to babysit a lot, and then I started working essentially full time by the time I was in high school. Because I was like, I can buy my own stuff. I can make my own choices if I'm making my own money. So I worked a lot. And when I was able to make choices, like I was a fangirl of the Waiver kids in high school. They were essentially like goth kids. And they some of the stuff they listened to was a little harder than the goth music, but they listened to all that and industrial and some other stuff. And I just thought they were super cool. They were a grade ahead of me. And I was like, I want to be your friend. They didn't really want to be my friend, but they made me some cool mixtapes. And so I started learning about like The Cure and Depeche Mode and Sonic Youth and Harriet Wheeler from the Sundays and all of this like beautiful kind of melancholic music that I just absolutely fell in love with. I was like, oh, this is me. This is how I feel inside. This is the music. And so I started listening to all that, and then I was in choir. So you're used to listening to people. So when in high school, by the time I got to the jazz choirs, I made a commitment to myself that if I made it into Capital Singers, which was like the top choir, the jazz choir, and it was limited and you had to try out for it and stuff. And I made a commitment to myself that if I got into that, I was going to get rid of all of my pop music and just listen to jazz. And the cool thing about that school is the former librarian collected so much amazing jazz music. So I would go and check out all these records and listen to them and record them. And then that was the gateway drug. That's when my ears started going out and I started listening to world music and then all kinds of crazy stuff after that as the years went by. So it got more and more avant-garde and more strange and more open, really, more and more open.
It's your life, it's your ear. You don't have to explain that to anybody.
I know.
Whatever lights you up, I'm all for it.
It's just, you got to be careful who you take with you when you go to the concert, you know, because they might be in fetal position and while you're like, yes, this is the stuff.
They're not ready. They need to work up to it, I guess.
probably won't. I mean, anyone who
Oh.
thinks like Bulgarian women's choir is like cats fighting, I think is what I heard. You know, they're probably not gonna get there.
It's gonna take a while. Never give up hope. Don't stop believing.
What about you? What about your music?
I feel like I'm a stereotype because most of my music that I really remember, my mom has really eclectic taste. So I remember a lot of Anita Baker,
Yes.
a lot of Whitney Houston all day.
I was part of her fan club.
From birth.
She had a fan club.
Just one? Come on.
I mean, it was like the official one. Where
Did
you
she
could
send
get
a
like
letter?
a signed. Well, I was real disappointed
Somebody.
because, yeah, it was just a copy of her signature. Maybe it was her signature.
How they do us. What else? In my head, I was really into music when I was 10, which was 1995. So in my head, I have like an internal radio station called W Baby Girl. It's like this radio station that's full of Brandy and Monica and all that stuff. Aaliyah.
I was just listening to her the other day. Yeah.
Aaliyah.
Mm-hmm.
Gone too
soon.
TLC. It did not go without question. Like, ain't too proud to beg, no. In the morning or the middle of the night.
I was so mad at them.
At Tevin Campbell. Did you ever listen to Tevin Campbell?
Yeah. You know who I loved more though is Al B. Shore.
Everybody loved Al B. Shore.
I was like, that was one of my first crushes, and it's all because of that one song that they kept playing over. I was a little kid. I'm like, what is this feeling?
That feeling, the exact feeling he was talking about. That's what you were. Oh man. And just a whole bunch of one-hit wonders.
Yeah.
They just came and went that I can't remember.
Yeah, have you ever tried to find their albums now? To see?
I have them on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of stuff on Spotify. It just knows me now.
Yeah.
It knows me. Maybe
I feel limited by mine. Dude, wait, what did you say? You froze up for a sec.
I said, I think Spotify knows me more than I know myself with musical taste now, because I've been getting into a lot of different stuff. Like, I love Parliament Funkadelic. I just wasn't around. I wasn't around to be there, but
yeah,
I love Bootsy Collins.
Yep.
Mainly those two. I love James Brown.
Oh my gosh, that's my happy music. Like, if I'm like feeling really blue, I put on a Make It Funky. It's mostly all right. It'll at least get me out of bed. You know what I mean? Because I can't help but, because of how did he get all the players to just be like, boom, like that first Make It Funky, and it's just like,
it's like the big name, man. It's like, you know what? It's time to begin. Let's make this happen. My song was always I Feel Good. Like, do you remember I had this doll called Porky. It was sort of like Teddy Ruxpin. So it would read stories, and it had a book, and I'd follow along or whatever. So one day I just got bored, and I found a tape with James Brown, I Feel Good on it, and I put it in the Corky or whatever, and I just was like, yeah, let's get it. I feel good.
Yeah, he has so many songs that are just, I mean, like, I'm always like bracing myself for like kind of every time I like post James Brown or something, I'm always bracing myself for people saying stuff about the character that he was, and I'm like, yeah, but you can't throw the baby out with bathwater. Like, this music uplifts a lot of people still, you know, and it has influenced deeply so many people, right? We see
James
Janelle
Brown is
Monáe.
so responsible for hip hop. Like all the
Yes,
early hip hop used samples of
right.
his stuff. So it's hard to throw people away. Like
Yeah,
I
we're
totally get it.
human.
The only person that for me I've just been like, fuck him, never play his music around me, is R. Kelly. I don't feel
Oh,
that at all.
yeah. I
At
never liked
all.
him. He always seemed like that creepy dude that's hanging out with your favorite uncle, with one of your uncles or something. And you're like, I don't know what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, to
His
me, he
first
always seemed like that.
album, I don't know, I think Steven Dunn brought this up one time, but he was talking about how there's a song on there called I Like the Crotch on You from like 1993. Who puts
Mm,
those words in a sentence
mm.
together?
I
Together
mean,
at the same time.
the only person, so I don't know if you remember, but Eddie Murphy had an album. He had some albums. He did,
Oh, yes.
and he had that song "Put Your Mouth on Me." Do you,
Oh, I don't know anything about that. Maybe I
it
was
came
in
out.
church.
It came out when I was a kid, and I thought it was a
Oh,
good song because I was like 8 years old or something, and everyone was making fun of him. Everyone was making fun of him,
the
and I
80s
felt
were a
so
special
bad.
time.
It was the '80s were a special time. It's true. It's true. But I liked that song. But I listen to it now. I'm like, it is kind of. It's hard to take him seriously because it's Eddie Murphy, and you're like, is he being funny right now? He's not being funny. Like,
Is it because you just can't imagine that anyone that would say that seriously and just be like,
people do say that seriously. That's the thing. That's what's so silly about the whole mess. It's like people do say stuff like that. Put your mouth on me, baby. You're like, that doesn't work for me.
I'm having a facial journey right now because I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't know. I spend a lot of my time reading. I don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
So the Rona
the Rona. Yeah,
making it difficult on a lot of fronts.
yeah. It's like I think over the last 2 days, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to be comfortable with being alone. Because it's kind of, I mean, that's what we're that's if we
But
don't
are
live
you
in the
actually
household.
alone?
I live by myself.
Mm.
And I mean, one thing that started happening during the Rona, I started these talks because of that, and I started planting tons of plants. So I started out pre-Rona working 5 jobs, 7 days a week, and I had 2 plants maybe left. A poor little succulent that had 2 little leaves that were like
Oh,
pale, just struggling. And then, those viney plants, I don't know if it's a philodendron or what, I can't remember what it's called, but you can stretch them all across your house. It had like 1 little branch, and it was pale, but it was still alive, and it had 1 leaf on it. Now I have like more than 20 plants of this mug, and like people have been bringing me food plants, so I have a garden, and I'm like,
nice.
what is going on? And and just like, and obviously it's like it's really hard to like it feels lonely sometimes. And I guess like from your question, like I know I'm not alone, even though sometimes it feels lonely, but there are a lot of boons. Like I have a lot of friends who live in really chaotic households and they're having a real hard time right now. Everything from, living with their best friends to their very toxic parents to communal households where it was fine, where everyone was coming and going, but now that they're all, more stuck in place, it is harder because like someone's chewing might get on your nerves in a really bad way and you didn't even know,
Oh
and
my
it's just
God,
because
yes.
you
Like
haven't
somebody
had
just
peace of
eating
heart.
is like enough for you to just
Snap.
it's happened to me. I can relate. I'll just be like, can you just not? Can you just not?
Actually, I decided I wasn't going to marry a dude one time because of the way he chewed. Because a friend was like, it could be anyone, and so I was trying to find the safe person, right? The safe, nice person, and I did. And one day we were sitting across from each other eating, and he was eating, and it was just falling out of his mouth and
How
like
did it go?
noises. And oh no, I decided then and there I was like, I cannot.
You can't spend 40, 50 years listening to that.
No, I mean, no matter all the other things I could accept, but that I could not. I was like, I did not know this about myself.
And I heard that's called misophonia.
Misophonia?
Misophonia,
oh
something
my
like that. Or like sounds you hate or something.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of ASMR.
I don't even get ASMR. What is it, like listening to people whisper or?
Yeah, I didn't until Whispers Red. And I love Whispers Red channel.
What's that?
She is the best. Whisper, it's her channel name. She's like a redhead from, I don't know if she's from Ireland or Scotland. I feel like a jerk because that's a huge discrepancy in my understanding. But essentially everything from like the library to, and it's a little erotic too. So I love Whispers. It's not like,
I want to understand, I just don't get it.
She's like the burlesque diva of ASMR as far as I'm concerned. And like,
I'm gonna look her up. I'm gonna do it. Maybe I'm opening myself up to something I'm just not ready for, but I'm gonna do it.
You know those icy pops?
Yeah.
Those little Kool-Aid icy pops or whatever? I actually saw someone I know on Instagram kind of doing a fun ASMR with that. And I was very surprised.
Like the crunch?
Yeah, just tearing the packets apart. And I was like, that is a very pleasant sound. I did not know.
Hey. Whatever gets us through.
I'm like, also Jeff Goldblum's voice.
Yeah. Jeff Goldblum. Ages like fine wine. It's true.
It's true. It's true.
So true. A cask of the finest wine. Jeff Goldblum. Perhaps. Indubitably. Maybe.
Indubitably. So something I want to talk about, Ralonda, something you don't talk about much is you're a healer too. And you don't talk about that very much.
I'm self-conscious, Tamika, and you know what? I've been battling this whole time because I figured out that I was a healer like 5 years ago, but there's been this hesitance on my behalf because something in my mind is like, nobody wants that. So I'm healing myself.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to heal myself because like when you were saying you were made fun of for how you talked and all of these things, I can relate to that. Yeah. And so it's always been this struggle of how do I put it so that it makes sense to people? So that I don't scare people off. So we're definitely here with that one.
Yeah.
I have spurts of talking about it because it's so close to my heart, but I'm still working on myself. I'm still healing myself. That doesn't mean that I know that even though I'm when you're a coach, it's not you have to be perfect in order to help people. Far from it. All you have to do is ask questions and listen and make people feel cared for and so that they can reach their highest potential.
Okay.
But that stops a lot of us because we feel like we have to be certified in all the things and we have to have all of the knowledge before we could even begin. But my friend Confidence Amanai, she said one thing to me years ago. She said, you don't have to, if you're standing on a ship and you look over and see someone drowning, you don't necessarily have to know how to swim to save them. You just have to know how to get them what they need at the very bottom, I guess.
Yeah.
So does that answer the question? I feel like I just spit up all over you like a baby, but you know, we're all trying to be radically vulnerable.
Thank you for that. And thank you for saying that. I just like, it's just something, you know, I've seen and I know. And then also, I think for me, because I work in the healing arts, I am very wary of folks who bandblast that I'm a healer. And I think not always, but a lot of times I do. Because I'll see things like, I think an example that comes up for me a lot is a practitioner who has learned a very powerful new process and just thinks it's appropriate to open everybody, to open all of their stuff. And again, that safe container, where's that at, right? So like you'll see stuff like the person enters the room doing all right. They're in a little pain, but they're doing all right. And they have whatever they're carrying, but they're not ready to deal with that. And they're not ready to deal with that in that room. Mm-hmm. But that practitioner decides that they're just going to open all the shit in that room. And then what happens is that person can't even focus. They don't know where their keys are. They're freaking out. And they haven't been grounded from whatever that process is. And that stuff makes me mad. That stuff makes me so mad. And there are lots of people like, oh, I learned this new process. Come and pay me to get this process and be opened up. And most people don't know what that means, right? You get stuff opened up and then you have to deal with it.
You have to figure out what to close back up because some things are better closed.
I mean, I'm all for opening it. Yeah. There's a certain part of me that loves chaos, but I think it's really important to supply that container. And if you don't have the container, mind your own. You know, don't go there.
I don't.
With your client.
I try not to. I think I did in the beginning.
Yeah.
But because it's like,
yeah.
No. I don't. Who wants that responsibility? Like, I harmed you. I'm not supposed to harm you. That's the first rule.
Right.
Because I don't want you to be harmed. Like, why would I?
Yeah.
So I think part of that needing to be certified and educated might come from that drive, just to try to be ethical, to actually make a positive difference and not make people worse.
Well, and that's another thing too, is like, I think I think I see where you're coming from, because like when I'm feeling spicy, I will push to that edge, especially if someone is like not. Anyway, I've been irresponsible a couple of times, probably at least a handful of times, and I've only regretted it a couple of times, and that's where that, you know, ethical thing comes from. It's just like, even if that's why I don't work with people I'm mad with, because you don't know who you are until you're in those spaces. But like, what was I think it's good to have knowledge of a lot of people with a lot of different kinds of skills, is where I was going with that. Because there are definitely things I'm not comfortable with too. Like, people come in, I haven't practiced massage since before Safer in Place, but people have come in with all kinds of needs and all kinds of wants, some of which were felt unreasonable and a lot of which felt uncomfortable for me. And I can always refer them, right? I'm like, I'm sorry, Absolutely. that's not what we do here, but here's a number, you know.
You're actually more of service by, if someone needs something that you can't deliver, you're more of service to them by referring them to someone else. Like with coaching, and especially my niche of, I'm still working it out, but it's all about finding your inner gold and things like that, things that trauma might have hid from you, which is damn near everybody.
Right.
If it gets too deep, I should refer you to a professional, as in like you have some things that, and also because coaches are forward facing, future oriented, so it really does no good for me, especially as I'm not trained as a therapist. It does no good for me to just be excavating in there. Like, that's not being of service in this way. It's actually being of disservice, and why coaches get a bad name, because they don't always necessarily act that way. They just want the money, or And I think part of my thinking of this is that's not who I want to be.
Right.
I want to figure out a way to come from it in a heart-centered way, so I'm actually doing the highest good for everybody's highest destiny.
Right.
So all of these things are huge. This is why I'm working it out slowly. This is why I don't talk about it as much as I used to.
Okay.
But I need to figure out who, like this, the marketing speak, they're always like, you gotta figure out exactly who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know yet. Because it's such a human, it's so human.
But something I've noticed is like with a lot of life coaches, I remember when I found out how I could be a life coach, and I was like, oh, interesting. I could be
Anybody
a life coach. It's, but like then I started looking at a lot of the folks who were becoming life coaches, and the feeling I got from them is that they were imposing something on their clients. They were imposing it, and I feel like you're coming from a different space is what I'm noticing. It's like there's that energy of imposition. I have a knowledge and I'm going to impose it, and you're going to follow it.
It's not the way to be a coach.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like teaching too, right? Like I have information I have to teach you, but how can I empower you to do something with something in this class? Because you're not going to take it on. Maybe you're not really interested in the class because it's a class you need, but like maybe there's something in this class that you can take forward, and that's fine with me. Get your C, pass the class, and if there's something in here that is useful for you, that is fucking great. I just have to do my job. And
you know what it is? There's so many coaches, there's so many people confused about what coaching is, even the coaches themselves. Like coaches think they're supposed to be consultants or mentors.
Right.
Mentors and consultants tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers tell you what to do. A coach asks you weird ass questions. Not always weird, but in order to help you to think through the heart of your matter, whatever it is. It's not for me to go in and be like, oh, I noticed that's your issue. You should read this book.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Don't shit on me.
Do not shit on me. That is rude.
Yeah.
And you know what is even more important? Don't shit on yourself.
Right. Okay. That is a practice every day.
Every day. Every single day.
Yep.
I forgot where I was going with this because that's important to me too. Yeah, in my coach training, it was always like you never make suggestions without asking permission first. So a person's talking about something and you say, I have something that helped me in the past. Would you like to hear it? And if they say no, okay, let's keep it moving. If they say yes, let them know. Keep it moving. You don't have to hold them accountable to reading the thing that you suggested. It's not about that. It's about helping people find their own power.
Yes.
And having someone tell you what to do is not going to do that.
And I think the other important part is being able to let that client go, being able to let that person go on their own journey. I've seen also a lot of healers and coaches and whatnot unable to unattach themselves from the outcome of their work and the outcome of whatever their gift was or whatever they think their gift was. And so then you have these weird toxic things that happen where people are stuck. And I think that's why I walked away from a lot of this stuff, because I happened to see a lot of that. That was really scary for me. That was really scary for me because I was also mired in it. Huh?
It feels gross, doesn't it?
It doesn't
feel like it's in integrity, because that's what matters.
Right.
Whatever is inside of you, integrity is what matters. If like I could have been one of those type of coaches, go out and hire a marketing person, take all the pretty pictures, hire a copywriter. I don't have that kind of money, so I can't do that. So I had to figure out a way to be in integrity without all that.
I think that's something I struggle with too, like how is there a way to live in integrity? And because it feels like we have to use the tools of capitalism to get the word out. Although I do know some folks who do very well with word of mouth and stuff like that. But we unfortunately live in a capitalist society, and so I feel that all of those tools are also appropriate and powerful for amplification. It's just like, where's the twist? Like, how do we keep our integrity while having to play in that world?
Something I've thought of for years. And that's partially why I'm so quiet about it. I just go on Facebook and make jokes and share memes, might share a song or two, comment strange things under people's posts because it's all a joke. Like part of it was, I don't know if you know how hard it is to give away free coaching. That's just the weirdest. Like, people, I don't know, it's so strange. Like, you say I offer free coaching, it's like people value it much less because it's actually worth more than that. And then you have to convince people. I'm working on it so I don't feel like I have to convince anybody of anything, because I think that's when you get out of integrity.
This is what happened to me. So I went to massage school, and in the beginning, you just want to give the work away, right? You want to give it to everybody because you have this amazing this skill set now. And I am also a people pleaser and a giver. So like I've been learning a lot of hard lessons and trying to, like, I have this sign up in the hallway that says I give from an overflowing cup, because that is something that I don't do. So, I did a reading with speech the other day, and she was yelling at me, just like,
"Oh no,
don't tip your cup!" And I was like, okay. Like, so I put it on my board.
Oh, you got one of those.
Don't tip your cup. So that's what I'm working on.
I've had that message too, so we relate.
Like, you can only adhesion and cohesion. The stuff that's at the top, that's what you can give. And I was like, okay, I dig it. And so, like, what was I saying? Massage. In the beginning, you want to give it all away, and so that's what I was doing. But here's what happens: it becomes impossible to give it all away because everybody does want it, and they do devalue it if you're not paying for it. So I would charge just a little bit because I was a student. I was like, I can take like $15-20 donation. Totally underselling, right? It's also hard work. It's hard work physically and also energetically. There were some lessons I learned there too about taking on people's pain and weird shit in my head. I didn't know what was going on with me, and I was like, oh, that's not mine. I better ask.
Are you an empath? You must be an empath.
I don't know what I am, but I know I was taking on people's physical pain. That was scary. And so all of those things, right? And then also clients would come in and they started paying me more. So I'm still a student, and they're like, you want $15? Here's 50. Here's 70. Like, they would start paying me what the work was worth, and all those things happening broke me out of that habit. It's like, oh, you're right. This is a big, like, I've learned a lot of things and a lot of skills, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to be able to do this work. And I am worth being paid for that. And I also need to eat. So that happened too. I lost all my jobs for a minute, and massage was the only thing I was doing. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm doing this full time. I have to get paid now. So it's just like the valuing of my time kind of came in succession of all those things. And now I'm to a point where I probably would undercharge a little, but just because I also want my work to be accessible. But people don't value my work as much if I only charge $35. True. Even people who have a hard time paying that. But people value my work more if it's, close to double that. So, which is really interesting and really telling, and also a good lesson, because I'm still hesitant, of wanting to charge those kinds of rates, because, like I said, I want it to be accessible. There are ways to go about that, but there has to be some kind of energetic exchange between you and that client. Otherwise, they're just taking stuff and
they don't value it.
and they don't value it, and they don't even realize what they're doing, and there's like tracers of this energy going away, and you're like, oh shit, what did I just do? Like, now I have to go home and like, you know,
How are your boundaries?
whatever. Yeah.
What are your boundaries like?
My boundaries?
Yeah.
It depends on the person, honestly, because those boundaries can flex. But in the beginning, they were staunch when I started realizing they needed to be staunch. So it was like black tourmaline level. And then I learned about a stone called kunzite, because I was like, I feel that I really need to feel and understand what's going on with this client to be able to work with them and to know how deep I can go and all these other things. But I also need to keep, because I was going through stuff too, I need to keep my stuff mine and their stuff theirs, and I need to know the difference. And so kunzite was a stone given to me for that purpose. It's like, I feel like it kind of has like the energy of quartz, so like heart energy, but it's not as opaque as tourmaline or black tourmaline, because black tourmaline, I feel like, is like, it's like when I just don't have the energy to deal with shit, surround myself with that and make a shiny surface so it can reflect back. But I don't need that in my work as a massage therapist. I need to be able to be there in that space presence, and also be able to have a filter that isn't, you know, that strong of a shield, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then sometimes often I forget, you know, like, especially with folks who are very close, sometimes I let them get in way too much, and I don't realize what has happened. But those are good lessons too, because it's like, okay, I think, and a specific situation I'm thinking about is, a thing I keep meaning to write about is, it came out in this line of poetry. I appreciate a good reckless trickster, because it reminds us to be aware of where our boundaries need to be, so we don't end up with our entrails in their mouth.
Hey, you wrote that?
Yes.
Get them.
Well, it was like something.
Bars.
I don't know if I wrote it. It was like something that came
Spirit.
to me. Yeah, and I was just like, holy shit. Yes, that is the truth. Because
and it's so primal. That was a very primal image. That was like ancestors, all of them.
You know,
wow.
we like to think of our tricksters as like, you know, good-humored spirits who give a shit about us, but they don't know better. They don't know better, and so they're gonna do what they think is fun, and that might not be fun for us. So therefore, we have to create that boundary, right?
It might not be fun for us. Like I think of tricksters kind of. I've started to lately from Ifa. There's Eshu, who is the god of the crossroads.
No, Eshu came up for me, and I might ask you about that.
So that means you're probably at a crossroads of some kind.
Like I said, I felt the most comfortable in the last 2 weeks in the graveyard and at the crossroads. And I was
graveyard is more Oya.
Is that, yeah, graveyard's more Oya, but I was just like, so I'm not really sure what I'm being told. Anyway, please continue. We'll get to that later if it happens.
So I mean, like the idea is like life is a path for you. Start off at a certain point, you have a certain endpoint, or at least you think. So you're on your path, and you hit a crossroads. Which way do you go? Which way do you go? And of course you can't tell. You don't know. You're just a simple human. You know, you don't know what's at the end of any of those paths. But at the end of the day, a trickster is really here to teach us something, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's very embarrassing or painful with entrails on the ground. Like in Ifa, Eshu would get people drunk. He would steal things. He would get, like Obatala, who's my crowning Orisha. He wears white clothes. He's the king of the white cloth. And one time, Eshu stole his clothes.
Ooh.
Another time, Eshu spilled red palm wine on him, and like all this crazy stuff, you know. So, but he learned from those things. He learned, like, don't get drunk. You must be sober. You're responsible for everything. You have
Yeah.
to be sober minded. You can't be down here swimming because something bad can happen. Like, you learn so many things from those stories and tricksters and things like that.
I unfortunately love, well, I say this, my jokes are like, I'm a terrible deadpanner, but in my head it's funny. I unfortunately have a love of tricksters. Which is probably, I know I say that ironically. I do love tricksters, and I seem to always find them. Like, even when I was studying like Vedic studies, I found the big honcho trickster.
Tell me about him.
Well, Dr. Treya, I think, is a combination of Brahma, Vishnu, and, come on, brain, I think Shiva. I think that's correct. So, has 3 faces, and just can create a lot of chaos in your life, like any good trickster, right? And the purpose of it obviously is for those lessons. And so something like this will happen. Here's a big lesson for me. I, at the end of a big process, kind of tagged on, so there are things you want, and I asked for clarity, which is hilarious because clarity comes if you're doing any practice, right? That's what I asked for. And then at the end I tagged on, I want to be happy and healthy with this person, a very specific person, but I added it on as if the energy wasn't going to get me, right? I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to put this in the contract real quick, you know. Okay. So here's what happened. We think that being happy and healthy with someone means that we're going to be with them in the same space. We weren't. Okay. We got separated. Oh. And one day I called to make sure. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? He had a migraine. That day I also experienced a fucking migraine.
Oh no.
And I was just like, I was just kind of like, wow, this is what a migraine's like, you know, the light and the pain and like the fogginess and like being in an in-between place, like a liminal space. And I was kind of in awe of it. I was like, whoa, this is what this is. And I knew what it was. So I called him to make sure, you know, and he was experiencing a migraine at that time. And I wasn't freaked out about it. I knew exactly what it was. I was like, oh, here's the lesson. To be happy and healthy with this person, I have to take really good care of my shit, because we are linked whether we are in the same room or not. Wow. And that's a scary trickster's lesson. That's a trickster's lesson. It's just like, oh, that's what you want, you're totally going to get it. But yeah,
it's like a monkey's paw lesson or a genie lesson. Like, you ask for this thing, yeah, but then all kinds of screwy stuff happens, and here it is. Did you really want it?
It's like, this is for your highest good. It's and that is what you're getting. And I'm like, oh. And I used to like, yeah, I spent almost 2 years pounding my pillows and screaming every night into my pillows, like, God, you're a motherfucking asshole. Like, you give us these lessons and we're supposed to see these things and we still have to live through it, ? And of course the tricksters and your guides and everyone, they're like, ha, yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So I'm able to enjoy it a lot more than I was, you know, quite some time ago. But I was like, okay, fine. Like, you know, like the 15-year-old, like, okay, fine, I'll take out the trash.
Yeah. Like, our inner 15-year-olds, I feel grounded right now. Grounded spiritually, just grounded.
Yeah, I feel it's this weird space where, like, even like it's forced quietness. I have a tendency to make myself busy and stuff, but it is definitely a forced quietness. It's like, no, this is where we're at. Like, you can't do anything about it. This is where we're at. And it's kind of cool. I'm more comfortable with it than I was in March. In March, I was really struggling.
I was good at first, and now I'm just like, I want to go to the beach and not be surrounded by idiots, but good luck with that.
I'm hoping this is the death throes. I feel a little more confident. I don't know if I'm like deluding myself, Jedi mind tricking myself, like that this is the death throes, but
Don't
I don't
say
know.
death throes. It's too soon.
The death throes of all this. Why is it too soon?
Because it's still happening. It just got morbid. I don't know.
I'm sorry. We don't have to go there.
It's okay. I was looking at the map of the countries that are allowing the U.S. to travel. And I love travel. I'm a Sagittarius moon and rising. I love to travel.
Where can we go?
Like not nearly as many places as we used to be able to go.
Yeah.
Europe's closed off to us.
Yep.
Ironically, Mexico is. I heard they shut their borders.
Good for them.
Ghana, where I wanted to go, where I want to eventually live.
Yeah.
Not allowed.
Damn.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at. But I can just keep working, I guess, until we can get there. Just keep working on myself or do all the things. I've been in economics class.
Mm-hmm.
Not great.
You know, we were talking about that. That was more depressing to me than my first foray into existentialism.
What?
In high school. Yeah.
Economics was more depressing than I agree.
Existentialism was pretty fucking. I mean, when you're like
it is
17 reading all this depressing, like why am I reading this? It's like that hurts a lot, and it stuck with me for a really long time. But economics class, that destroyed me, because no one else was asking these questions, like why does it make sense for a country to dump its excess on another country, and then that country gets even more poor in that process?
Colonialism.
And to boot, they don't have access to what we just dumped on them? ? Wait, what?
People sound like straight up sociopaths.
Yeah.
I was on a webinar because I was talking about being a chief learning officer, and this was geared toward it. And the title was something like the next 3 years in learning and development. And this guy was just going on and on about how Trump is so good for the economy and all this stuff. And it's like, where have you been?
Right.
Like, he's just not good at his job.
No.
Objectively.
Unless his job tank the whole ship, because feels like what's happening.
Thousands of people, millions of people. Just like, why is it controversial to say that he's bad at his job? He's literally bad at his job.
Yeah.
That's it. If I'm bad at my job, my ass would get fired.
Right.
But hey, we're in the illusion.
Yeah.
So I had to delete all my news apps because I will go off on a tangent.
Yeah. I just, anymore, I'm just like, I don't have time for that, because I got to figure out what I can do. And like, you know, maybe it's not some grandiose thing. Maybe it's not some huge effective thing, but I got to figure out what I can do from where I am. And that takes a lot of energy, rather than nickel and diming my time trying to inform folks, you know, or like trying to explain myself about where I'm coming from on this issue. I'm like, look, I really don't have time, but it's really damaging to me and a lot of people I care about. And if you don't see it, I don't think I can help you see it. I have time for what I can do. And that's one thing I can do too, is just not even engage in that.
That's what that's how I got through George Floyd, the whole thing. Like, man, this situation for me was such deja vu. From Trayvon Martin, Freddie Gray especially. I used to argue with people. I had this boss who I thought was okay, I guess, until he decided to argue with me on Facebook that Freddie Gray shouldn't have run and he deserved to be shot. And I was like, you said that.
Oh.
Like, so I think probably around that moment I was just like, I don't even want to know. don't tell me, because this is something that I cannot be on both sides about.
Right.
And I don't understand why I'm supposed to be.
Right.
Like, you sound like just evil. Like, who does that?
Yeah. I remember walking home from, at the time I was working at Starbucks, when George Floyd happened. And I was so full of all kinds of really like angry and frustrated feelings with people, and tired. And it was like people were like, oh, if I can get my Starbucks, everything's fine. And it's this weird space that Starbucks creates where people maybe think the rules of what's going, the rules of COVID-19 don't apply.
Like a barrier, you're just protected as soon as you go into Starbucks.
Because it's some magical, mystical place where you go and get your adult sippy cup and everything's fine, right? And just all kinds of other things, like stuff different people would say that they thought they could say to me about these issues, and then all this stuff going on, and then also watching, like, one of my coworkers, this young Black man, and his fear when the police officers come, or when people say certain things or whatever, and just watching all of that, and then and then hearing this news. And I'm also a massage therapist, and I know what neck bones are, like I know what's happening. Anyway, I don't want to get too much in that, but I remember walking home that day, and I felt it in my body. I felt the vertebrae. I felt absolute rage, and I just tore apart. I was on the phone with someone, and I was screaming, like scraping my throat, screaming, and my knees were buckling, and I was just like walking down the street. And there were people on their porches, like having a nice cuppa with their neighbor or something. And, because I live in like kind of a suburby area, sort of, not too far out of the city. And I was just so full of like all of these emotions that I couldn't control. And they were just coming out of me, just walking down the street. And everyone else was like in this space where like, oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. That was like how I felt about the people around me that day. And I really felt a lot of guilt and a lot of like all kinds of other things, because it's like, what can I do? Like, what can I do? Because this is not right. This isn't right. All these people with their adult sippy cups and whatever, it's not okay. It's not right. It is not right. Do you see what's happening? I know you see what's happening. And like, how do we, this is another question I've had for a long time, especially after I saw this play called Passover. And Passover is a play about two Black men who live on the street and they can't escape their block. And the police officer character, which who patrols the area and obviously causes a lot of stress for these men, also is a man dressed in, like, it takes it back to plantation era, and he has a basket, and he's a very nice white man for most of the play, but at some point he actually shoots them. And he after that happens, he's like, oh, did you hear about what happened? It's a terrible thing. Two Black men got shot. And then he walks off the stage. And it's a really powerful play that implicates whiteness. It implicates whiteness and is very aware of who's in the seats in that audience. And I remember seeing this, and I was like, whoa, this is a fucking powerful act. And then I also stayed for the Q&A afterwards. And the folks in that audience, the first question that came up was like, why do you think your audience was ready for a play like this? That's what the man said. 3 Black people left.
As soon as he said that?
When he said that, and I was like, here we go. Yeah, because that was the question, and it was obvious where the money was coming from, and it made a lot of people very uncomfortable. It's a great play. It's a great, powerful play. And so, like, that's my question, is like, calling the thing out. That's always the thing we have to do. So implicating whiteness and coming up against that barrier, and like, there isn't time to be gentle about it. There isn't time to be gentle about it. It needs to be implicated. It needs to be called out. And that's the part where I struggle with, because I saw it happen in that room. It made people uncomfortable, and they were like, this is bullshit, or like, why did you think we were ready for this? Or just like, you know, like not agreeing because it made them feel uncomfortable and not able to access. Some will later, and I think a couple did in that moment, in the moment of watching that play, but most of the people in that room didn't. And that's really scary to me, to see it played out like that. And so like, how do we implicate it? And then also, I don't know what we need to do next. Sometimes I feel like we just need to, like, you know, lay the burn it all down. Sometimes I feel like we need to burn it all down, and sometimes I feel like we need to, like, how does the healing come? When does the reconciliation come? Is the reconciliation possible? Like, these are questions I have.
I feel like it'll only happen if once we all decide to see what is actually happening. We have half of the population does not want to see, so they don't see.
Right.
And it's been going on for centuries.
Right.
It might even be in their best interest to not see.
Yeah.
So if you know it's in your best interest to close your eyes, you're going to close your eyes. But it's like, I can't beat you into opening your eyes. I already know that. That's why I don't argue with people on the internet.
Yeah.
I try not to argue with anybody about much of anything. If I can avoid it, because arguing is not gonna help you necessarily to see my point, rather than something else. But I feel you on the George Floyd thing. Like, I would normally step to the plate and I guess sacrifice my peace of mind in order to educate people, but something just happened this time. It was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not, because I've done it before.
Yeah.
So often. Right. Have you read this book? Do you know this?
Yeah.
Have you actually taken a class on actual history?
Right.
And not what you've been taught from K through 12, because they did you no favors.
They did not.
It's a shame that we have to grow up and go to college to kind of get an idea of something outside of that. But it's a choice.
And we have to
not
be
everybody
able to
else
ask the right
does
questions.
Yeah.
We have to, like, find those guideposts. And that is coincidental. I remember last semester teaching, I was really excited about a certain student's work, and it was because they were able to ask those questions, and part of it was because of identity, and students who had it easier and who, you know, didn't have to find their place in the world because it was kind of already set for them, you know. They weren't asking those questions, and they would actually often refute those questions that this particular student was having. And I made sure to tell them, like, I admire where you're coming from, and I hope you can keep your resolve, because, you know, being a little older, we've seen how stuff happens, you know, like how it nickel and dimes your confidence often, if you don't have the community you need to help, you know. And some people are just super resilient and, like, don't give a fuck, and they're just gonna be like, this is my resolve.
I don't think I'm one of those people, but holy spite helps a little bit.
Holy spite.
It helps a little bit most of the time, because sometimes I wake up and I'm just like,
right.
I'm just, wow, this world is still what it is. But like you said, we have to do what we can. We have to come up with, like you posted yesterday, said something about what kind of ancestor you would want to be.
Yeah.
And I think about that. Like, I want to be someone who people look back on and say, hey, she had knowledge. She's perfectly willing to share it. Even got on my nerves a little bit sometimes, but
right.
But yeah, I want to be someone people look back like I did something good that helped the growth of everybody's higher good.
I love that. I love that.
I don't know how I'm doing from day to day, but that's one of my highest intentions.
But you're doing your work, and that is so much more than most of us will ever do. Like, you know, I'm trying to think of the word for what you were explaining about how people just go back to that blindness. Like, you
Willful
open them up,
ignorance.
global
That's what I
ignorance.
call it. Willful ignorance. That's what I call it. It's
Willful,
willful.
yeah, willful
It's
ignorance.
willful. You're
It
doing
is.
it by your will. You're willing yourself to be ignorant. It's willful ignorance.
It's almost like they go harder back into that blindness. It's like, oh, I see it, and it's like there's a term for it. And I can't remember, but I'll probably think of it like 2 hours from now, like in
Yeah.
my D game or something. I'm like, oh shoot, that's right. I'm supposed to be fighting a monster right now. But well, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about?
Like to end on some hope or something.
Love
What's
that.
the most hopeful thing? The most hopeful thing I can think of, I guess, is nature. I always come back
Yes.
to nature.
Yes.
So the changing of seasons. It was just winter. It'll be winter again, even though it's summer. Summer has some aspects of winter. You're on camera. This is going to be public. I think. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yes.
Like clockwork, it's winter, then it's spring, and then it's summer, then it's autumn, then it's winter, and it just keeps going no matter what we do. And even if like in winter, so everything looks dead, it's not.
Right.
It's just dormant.
Right.
So maybe we're just dormant right now, but a seed is dormant, but you plant a seed and it can become the most beautiful, riotous, colorful, amazing thing. That's like, if you think about it, flowers or
Yeah.
any life is just miraculous.
Indeed. Yeah.
Just in the right place at the right time. And here we are talking about flowers. And yeah, just try to think about stuff like that.
I do too. I return to nature always too. I haven't driven in a long time, so I have to try to find nature in the city. And obviously if you're looking for it, it's there, like the way water ripples on a building, from the water downtown, or the way what the wind does, or the little no-see-ums in the sidewalk that create veins. I forget what they're called right now, but it's a living entity. I don't know if entity is the right word, but because anyway, like, that argument about consciousness and whatever, but it's living. It's a living thing. Or like even just like, you're talking about the trees, and I'm thinking about all the beetles in the yard. There are the Japanese beetles, and then there's some other kind of beetle too, and how it just supplies all kinds of life, and then the squirrels, and like, it's like just by being, that tree actually has a purpose of being, and there are so many other things that happen because that tree exists, right? And there are all kinds of other lessons we can get to from just looking at the way things move or grow, or the resilience of rogue flowers in an alleyway or in a sidewalk. Those are some of my favorite things, because despite whatever we lay out, nature still happens. Nature's still going to do its thing.
And we are nature.
And we are nature.
That's also the hopeful thing. We are also nature, so we can do that too.
Absolutely.
All of those things.
Absolutely. Well, how can people support the work that you're doing?
I don't know. I don't really, I have websites. I just need to get back on them. I have a website called Soul Transcendence Coaching.com.
Okay.
All about transcendence. I have a system that relies on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I haven't really gotten into that, but it's in the imagery of my brand, the pyramid that I have up there. I don't want to be, I mean, I have a PayPal and a Cash App.
I mean, yeah, say that.
So my PayPal is open-handed, like open hands, .alchemy@gmail.com. I don't remember my Cash App, but the PayPal works too. And if we ever see each other again, just say what's up, holla.
Absolutely.
I'll come over and ask you questions and listen to you and let you keep talking, because that's not a common thing apparently. I don't know.
What is it? What, letting people talk?
Letting people, like, yeah, just like listening to them.
Yeah.
And not interrupting.
I hope I didn't do that too much.
I hope I didn't do that. It's fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this has been a good conversation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'm gonna close it up.
All right.